All right, so hello everybody. Thank you for coming. This is creating a safe training environment for non-male students. So if this was the class, if this was not the class you thought that you were attending, you are welcome to exit. I am Warder Gwyneth Vich-Ewan. Mundanely, I'm Carrie Holman with a lot of different letters after my name. Those are all just fancy ways of saying that I am a mental health therapist. That is what I do, in my real life. I play one on TV. So that is my background, and that is where I come from in terms of the research I've done for this creating of safe training environments. I'm talking about from a psychological lens, not from a physical lens, because I would hope that our Marshall handbooks would cover that bit. So with that, please note that at least in my research to date, I have not been able to find any sports psychology studies on athletes who are not male or female. I've not been able to find any research on athletes outside of that gender binary. So this does limit the research that I do for this, but I do try my best to apply my clinical experience to kind of fill in those gaps. The LGBTQIA plus community is one of my specialties. So I do have a lot of clients that I work with, on a whole host of issues. It's not like, oh, you're depressed, that must be because you're gay. That's not how we do things. But also because of this limit and my desire to try to report on the research accurately that I do find in the psychology literature, I will mostly use the terms male and female. I do, however, think that a lot of this applies to individuals outside of this binary. And even with this binary, if I say something like women tend to do this or males tend to do that, these are very broad brushstrokes that aren't going to apply to every single person you've met. Obviously, because we are each individuals, this is just the average from the sample size with any given piece of research. So with all of that, my thing will work. There we go. So we're going to start off with, how do we define safety? Because we are talking about creating a safe training environment. So for the purposes of our discussion, safety is freedom from the fear of negative consequences. And I don't mean like, oh man, I lost the fight. So this means safety to questions, to asking questions that are not ignored, invalidated, or belittled. This also means safety to doubt, question, and challenge the teacher. Anytime a teacher says, well, because I'm the teacher, or I'm the knight, or I'm the mod, or, I'm the master, whatever, that doesn't create a safe training environment. It also makes your students unwilling to ask more questions, and they are here to learn. If you ever remember a teacher, maybe a math teacher or whatever, who's like, well, I'm the teacher, or because I'm the parent and I said so. Yes, we've probably all said this one, but from the child's standpoint, from their perspective, this isn't exactly encouraging dialogue now, is it? So safety does also mean from physical harm, but also from mental harm. And being a mental health therapist, of course, that's where my focus is. So this does, then lead to the question, but I have to hit them eventually. I'm a fencer. This was designed mostly for the contact sports here in the SCA. So how do you do this without hitting your student? Because you have to do this in order to teach them fencing or teach them heavy or grappling or whatever it is. And you are correct. However, how this is done matters. How you go about making that physical contact matters. And so the most common method of teaching that I've seen in the SCA is kind of the wing it method. Like, well, this is how I learned, or this is what works for me. What I also see is what I call the whack, don't die method. I'm going to show you how to do it, and then I'm just going to keep hitting you until you get it right. Here's how you parry with a rapier. If you do your parry wrong, I'm going to hit you, because that's how it works in fencing. If you don't get the parry, the other opponent's sword is going to get you. So again, in general, what men tend to hear is stab or whack, don't die. Try it again, whack, don't die. What women, and I think possibly others, tend to hear instead is whack, you did it wrong. Not that I outmaneuvered you or I have more experience, so I'm better at this than you. It's you did it wrong. You are at fault. And these semantics are very important. I also have a background in English and writing, so of course I'm obsessed with words and semantics as well. But these semantics are important. So I have here stab, don't die, the method for men, ? I've met more male fighters who tend to like this method than I do female. I don't think that, actually, I know not every man likes this method, but I have found more men who do. So how it works is that the teacher shows the student the maneuver, the skill, the trick, whatever it is. The student tries it, and if the student fails, the teacher stabs them or hits them, whatever your context is. And then try it again. If the student gets it wrong, they'll get stabbed. And they just repeat this until the student executes correctly and thus doesn't die. They go, okay, well, that didn't work. I'll move my elbow. Okay, well, that didn't work. I'll extend my arm a little farther, or I'll take an extra step. Whatever it is, you all can hear I'm a fencer. I'm using fencer lingo. So then if I've said that women don't like this method, women actually almost to a person hate this method. Out of all of the women I polled, I think I found three who like this method. And I think I polled 60, 70 women, and they almost 100% hate this method. The reason for that, or the thinking, is if I didn't get it right the first 6 times, what in the world makes you think I'm going to get it right the 7th? I heard these words almost verbatim from almost every woman I asked. And the frustration I would hear in their voices from, why do you keep hitting me? If I didn't get it right, I'm not going to magically get it the 7th time, the 12th time, the 20th time. I clearly don't know how to do this right. And so then I'm going to go into why this method is detrimental to women per this research that I've been doing in the psychology literature. And you'll note that instead of whack, you died, I have whack, you did it wrong. Because in her brain, she has just been punished for trying. You, as the teacher, have told her, do this thing. Now I've punished you for trying. Why did you even do that? You did it wrong. I need to reiterate this. She has been punished for trying, for doing the very thing you just told her to do. And then you punished her for it. Is this your intent? No, of course it is not. We are here to learn a skill. But this is how the female brain processes this. So as I just showed you kind of the training sequence to your standard issue average male brain, this is how the female brain tends to process this training sequence. Teacher explains what to do. move your sword, take a step forward, whatever the action is. She tries her best to execute it because she's a good student. She doesn't get it right because, she's just learning this brand new thing. And now she's been hit. And you know what? That feels awful. Nobody likes to fail. Nobody likes to try their best and then still not get it. So her brain goes, wow, that was awful. So she tries it again. And she gets hit again. And her brain goes, that felt even worse. And we repeat it. Tries it again. She's hit. And her brain goes, this is really not cool. I am not having a good time with this. So what is even worse is that her brain is taking this as a punishment, and her brain is taking this as a physical punishment. I should take a moment and think about what gender presentation the majority of combat teachers are, at least in the mid-realm. I can't speak for every other kingdom. At least for fencing, in my experience, it's mostly males. It's mostly men, people who present as men, so on and so forth. And so I've had people ask me, how does this happen? And strictly speaking, male and female brains react to stimuli differently. I've read some really cool studies. They put, people in the MRI, they do the brain scan, and different parts of the brain light up in different ways to the same stimuli, depending on what brain you got. I'm waiting to see how transgender and non-binary brains respond. I'm really interested to just see what it is. I have my theories, but we'll have to see what happens. And so then, why does this happen? The current debate, honestly, is whether or not this is just how the female brain in our species evolved, or whether or not this was, to be a little crass, selectively bred into women. Because the women who retreated, the women who cowered, were quite frankly the women who lived. And then they were the ones who had children. And if over time, this response is what became prominent. The debate is currently out on which one it is, if it's one or the other or both. It's kind of like the nature-nurture question. So, the female brain interprets, ultimately, this training sequence in the same way as being struck by an abusive partner. If I try and I'm physically punished, this is processed in my brain as if I was being struck by an abusive partner. Even if cognitively up here in my logical centers, I know that's not the case. And I know, like, this is fencing. I have my gear on. This is a combat sport. Contact is required. I know this. In the back of my mind, actually in the amygdala and the hippocampus, they're not having fun. They're coding this as if I am like being physically abused, physically attacked in a non-consensual way. So please take a moment to reflect on this. What the male brain in general processes as, you hit me, bring it on. I've got those people at my practice. I get a laugh out of it. I think it's fun to watch, but it's, you did it, bring it on. The female brain processes as, I was wrong and I am punished. Not, my opponent executed their attack better than I executed mine and they just got the drop on me. It was, I made the mistake, I failed, I am wrong, and this is my punishment. And so thus, being physically punished by a male teacher in this way, if this is how the brain is processing this, is even more frightening. From the psychology research, and again, don't know if this is evolution or nature, nurture, whatever it is, but girls understand from a very early age that their male counterparts can be dangerous. Could be somebody who's never experienced abuse, has never been harmed, has never been neglected. But from a very young age, girls know that boys can be dangerous and that angry, physical boys, teens, men can be dangerous. And so her brain is primed for this. Again, whether this is evolution or this has been kind of instilled in us, I don't know. The jury is out. So if you're the teacher, talk about a trust violation. You're the teacher and she's the student. You need to have some kind of trusting relationship here in order to do this. Really, for anybody, even if it was a male student to a male teacher, okay, I'm going to put this stick in your hand and I'm going to have my stick and now I'm going to hit you. There needs to be a certain level of trust here that you're not going to break my arm, you know? So the result is that despite what she consciously wants, the lady fencer's brain will pull her back. A brief for kind of a conceptualization, this is how I explain it to my clients, is that conceptually you have your brain and your mind. Your brain is the squishy thing in your head. It's frequently what we refer to as the lizard brain. You know, in fencing, if anybody else knows that term, it's your knee-jerk responses. And it's the bit that makes your heart pump and your lungs breathe and your tummy digest. But then there's your mind. And your mind is you. It's your personality. It's your logic. It's your likes, your dislikes. It's your opinion on whether or not pineapple belongs on pizza. So that part of your student's mind wants to continue. But her brain, the squishy thing, which again is the physical part of your brain that's doing this, is your amygdala with your hippocampus tagging along for the ride, starts to pull her back from this stab, I'm wrong, stab, I've been punished. So her mind, her conscious, her logic is going, come on, let's do this. I'm a fencer, grr, I'm a powerful woman. Her brain goes, no, are you crazy? Stop doing this. We are going to get hurt if we do that because it would just happen the past 6 times. Her brain is going, this is not good. This is not fun. This might even be dangerous. So what this often leads to is a noticeable level of frustration and also a subconscious increase in fear. I'm able to notice this in myself simply because I have been trained. The mind is what I do. I'm a mental health therapist. I know how to find this stuff. And so I've learned how to notice it in myself to a degree that I would not expect anybody else to do, because you don't spend all of your working hours helping people with this stuff. And thus, the lady fencer gets progressively worse and worse over the course of that day or that lesson, until both she and her teacher walk away in frustration. I've seen this a lot with particularly new students, where you have, especially in the women, I see this like time and again, there's this cognitive dissonance where she's being told, hit me. I'll stand there and I'll be like, right here, come on, right here. Girl to girl, hit me, woman to woman, right here. And she kind of goes, boop. And then she'll maybe giggle really like, oh my gosh, she'll giggle awkwardly. Because that is part of her brain is going, you just hit somebody. What the heck? Girls don't hit people. Well, that's what she just did. So she starts laughing kind of uncomfortably because her brain is trying to sort this out and it kind of doesn't know what to do. But on the flip side, if she's, again, I see this a lot with the new students or the early on students. she gets stabbed, and she gets stabbed, and she gets stabbed, and she gets stabbed. And her mind, again, is trying to do this, but her brain is saying, no, this isn't safe. And when it comes between your mind and your brain is going to win out 98% of the time. Your brain will override all of your logical faculties. This is not the place for me to explain to you how specifically that happens between your prefrontal cortex and the rest of your brain. If you're curious, hit me up and I can explain it to you, but this is what happens. And so she is trying to engage, but she gets slower, she gets more hesitant. If you look, you'll maybe even see it in the body language, because her brain is trying to protect her because it thinks she's in danger. Even if this is, a consensual fighting practice environment. Until eventually she's frustrated because she's not getting it. She's doing worse, in fact. The teacher's frustrated and is like, I don't even know what's going on. She's just getting worse instead of better. So this is also damaging to self-efficacy. And self-efficacy is just your belief in your ability to perform a task. Do you think you're competent in this, or passably good at it? It could even be your ability to figure out what setting to put the laundry machine on, your ability to tie your shoes. This is all your belief in this is your self-efficacy. Self-confidence, these two often get confused. Self-confidence is your belief in your value as an individual person. So these two are actually different. Self-efficacy is your belief in your ability to do the thing. Self-confidence is your belief in your value as an individual person. And so this scenario that we've been outlining denies her self-efficacy. And honestly, I do think that this would have a negative impact on just about anybody's self-efficacy. If every time you're told, try it, you don't succeed, you are not going to believe that you can do that task. If every time you try to do a flip off the diving board and you land with a belly flop, after a few times, you're not going to want to do that anymore because that belly flop hurts an awful lot. And you may walk away going, I can't do a flip off the diving board. I do not believe I can perform this task. And so what this training scenario we've outlined does is it proves, I put that in quotes, it proves she cannot perform the task because she's being punished every time she tries. She gets hit. And then coupled with that fear that has been installed, if she picks up a sword again, and if it's a new student, that's a big if, precedent, past experience has demonstrated to her that she can't perform, or that you as an individual combatant aren't a safe person to combat. Even if, again, consciously she knows this is, I'm going to say Bob because Bob is my default. Even if she knows Bob is a good person, Bob wouldn't harm me or anybody, in that fencing context, a fear has been installed that Bob's not a safe opponent, that I'm going to get smacked around and I'm going to be hurt and I'm not going to have fun. And that's not the foundation anybody wants or deserves, really, within fencing or heavy or archery or any discipline or any new technique that requires some sort of mastery. That is not the foundation I want anybody to have when they come into the SCA. I do not want them to start where their foundation is fear of some sort. I would imagine the first time somebody does an A&S competition, which I have never done, so I apologize for any inaccuracies, I would not want their first submission to just be utterly ripped to pieces by the judges. Because that also hurts. That is like, okay, well, That was awful. That was a blow to my self-efficacy. Why would I do that again? Why would you, if your first attempt was torn to pieces and everyone was like, this is awful, poorly researched, you can tell I don't know. Why would anybody want to do that a second time? You know? If you ever hear that whole thing about how, it takes 7 good experiences to erase 1 bad experience, that is especially relevant when it's your first experience. If you have had 7 successful fencing practices or 7 successful submissions to an A&S competition, after that, 1 bad day is not going to do you too much. Not going to do you too much damage. Unless we then have 6 more subsequent bad experiences. But again, we want to start off positively. We are trying to establish a safe training environment, a safe learning environment for our students. And so then this, begs a question. This is the question I was asked the very first time I presented this information. I don't want to be an abusive teacher. I like to be a nice person, not abusive. So what do I do? And I think this is a good question. And my answer is, if the teacher wants the student to engage in fencing or whatever activity without fear of being hit, which one must do in order to play this game, in order to do fencing or heavy, you will be hit at some point. It is in fact a contact sport, both of them. You have to create that safe environment to learn in. And so, how do we do this? Do it in steps that allow your student, whomever your student is, to gain confidence in the execution before you stab your student. So like in our practice, we kind of joke and we say masks off for safety. What we mean is, if the masks are off, we remember to slow down, because nobody wants to hit this. This is the pretty bit. This is the money maker, right? And so first, demonstrate the concept slowly. This is what I'm teaching. Have your student execute it slowly. Get the form of it right. And then when you are doing, let's say, parry the blade, where we need 2 blades to make this work, if she doesn't do it correctly, if she does it wrong, stop your blade before striking. If, I'm learning something and I don't do it right and the blade stops about here, I can see I did it wrong. The blade is about 3 inches from my face. You don't need to hit me in the face or the torso or the knee for me to know I didn't do it right. Your blade is right there. So this is how you can communicate you didn't do it correctly without following up with that physical punishment that her brain is going to take it in as. And then, as with learning anything, you keep practicing, adjusting the technique as necessary, and speed up as your student improves. But, also don't be afraid to slow it back down if necessary. When I'm learning, I will sometimes get a little overexcited and I start moving faster and I get sloppier. Slow it down. And I know it's getting sloppy because now I'm missing. And now that blade is coming right here. Just slow it down. And then, work up towards that full speed. And when you're going to get there, announce clearly that sword contact will now begin. So steps 3 and 6 are really the key differences. As I just said, if she does it wrong, stop the blade before striking, because we can see very clearly that it didn't go well. It didn't go right. As I said, sword tip a few inches from your face makes it pretty clear. But this also does not trip that protective switch, because there's no physical contact. And so there's no punishment, there's no physical punishment for trying and getting it wrong. It is now a safe space to keep trying and to keep working towards getting it correct. In step 6, that announcing that physical contact will now begin. This is, of course, when she's executing the maneuver well enough to move up to that 3/4 speed or that full speed. And that is when the full contact can begin. Do not take your student by surprise and suddenly strike them without telling them that's what you were going to do. That is going to startle anybody. And really, it's kind of a trust break. That's a thing we talk about in therapy between you and your client as a trust rupture. It's very similar between a student and a teacher. You don't want to suddenly pull some trick on them that they didn't know was coming, because it makes you look like a jerk, honestly. And you're gonna cause a little blip on that self-confidence, and you don't want to do that. And say explicitly, now contact is going to begin, or something like that, or now I'm going to try to hit you. Again, with those semantics, that try is a key word. It's not now I'm going to hit you, because, okay, well, now that's a foregone conclusion. It's I'm going to try. Because if the student executes the maneuver correctly, you're not going to get them. So you're going to try to hit your students. Also, if you haven't already, put your masks on or your helmets. Don't be doing 3/4 or full speed without all of your protective gear on. When I'm learning with my teacher, Master Kai Tseng, he used to say, go put your mask on. And then he would say, now I'm going to try to hit you. Nowadays, he just says, go get your mask on. And I know what the next step is. I know, okay, if I don't get it right, he's going to get it. But now that fear isn't there, because I've been taught the maneuver. I have the self-efficacy and that I can make this work at least sometimes. And so if his blade strikes me, it's not processed as a punishment. So now let's get into what success looks like. She will respond, as I just said for myself, more confidently, even if she is struck by your blade, your sword, whatever it is you're doing, your hands if you're doing grappling or wrestling, simply because she was able to practice safely without that fear of physical punishment for perceiving to be wrong, as opposed to, in truth, it's you're being less experienced, you're being in the position or the action of learning. And her trust in her teacher will grow. In a previous class I did earlier, the research has shown for all athletes across the board, professional and amateur, trust in the teacher is very important for female athletes. So if you have a female student, and I also think this would apply to a lot of others as well, you want to nurture that trust. You're not just their physics teacher or their English teacher whose job is here, I'm going to teach you this information, there's a test on Tuesday. Especially given with this kind of stuff, with athletics, with physical activity, there is always some sort of bodily risk involved, even when it's not a contact sport like fencing or heavy. You might get hit in the head with a baseball, whatever. And so you want to have that trust, especially for your female athletes who do really respond well and want that trust in their teacher. And so, as we said, this relationship is of noticeable impact across sports environments. I mean, it doesn't matter what sport it is, it seems to always have an impact. And so, a final word on sparring. So, you're at an event or at a practice, you're doing pickups, whatever. For the more experienced fencer or heavy grappler, wrestler, whatever you're doing, If you're the more experienced one and you're sparring with a less experienced opponent, go ahead and ask, what are you working on? Is there something I can set up for you, or do you just want to fight? What is it they're looking for? And that may be followed up with, if they say, I just want to fight, okay, what level do you want from me? Do you want my A game? Do you want my B game? Do you want my C game? See what they ask or see what they say. If somebody is like, hi, Warder Gwen, I just authorized today, and they said they want my A game, honestly, I'm going to question them on that, because I don't think my A game is going to be very fun for them. And I'm not going to have a lot of fun just, wiping the floor with somebody just because I can. That also makes me a jerk, and I don't want to do that. So if you can, and this is a skill in and of itself that can be difficult to master on its own, is trying to fight just above that fighter's level. So it makes the fights tough enough that your less experienced opponent has to work for their victories, but they're still obtainable. I was at a whatever maidens it was. It was a maidens in the past, and we were running a pickup tournament. So go and pick fights with people. Each level of experience got a different score. My goal for that was to go out and fight as many cavnots and novices as I could, and that they would each win. I wasn't going to just give them the fight. They had to work for it, but I wanted them to win. And so I would limit myself to what I thought they had seen before. If I'm fighting a novice who I'm pretty sure has probably never seen a contratempo a day in their life, I'm going to try to not use that, because I want them to be able to have a good time. And I at least can always work on my fundamentals. I can always work on my footwork and a proper lunge and all of that kind of stuff. Another note, and this was a little hard for me to get at first, was to fight bigger, not fight worse. This may mean a larger disengage, so that your opponent or your student can start to develop that eye for seeing that disengage, so that that lizard brain will trip, will go, there's a disengage. Or maybe I put out my sword and I wait a tempo before then attacking the opponent, so that they can start to see when they're in danger or anything like that. I just said it, waiting a tempo, so they can learn to see when they're under that threat. Because otherwise, you get what I was just mentioning. The more experienced fighter looks like they are just a jerk who only cares about winning. I've met a lot of people who remember that day or that particular fighter who just kicked their butt just because they could. And nobody has ever had a positive memory of that moment, because they're going like, I'm a novice, I'm a cavnot, or whatever. You're a mod, you're a knight. What in the world were you just proving? Nobody wants to have that day. And I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that fencer. I don't want to be somebody that the others go, oh, hey, that's Warder Gwen. She's a jerk. She'll wipe the floor with you. Unless you ask me to. If you ask me to, okay, I'll do it. But that's not going to be my default. Because, at the end of the day, it just gives the message that you're less experienced, so you're going to lose no matter what you do. Which then produces the question, I'm going to lose no matter what I do, why bother? I've had those people that were just so much better than me at one point, or still are. And sometimes it's really frustrating. And I may go, I'm going to pick on Logos because he's not here, and Logos is also very good. So I may have a day where I'm like, if there's nothing I can do to ever beat Logos, why fight him? I'll just go get like a rubber band gun and shoot it. So Logos being Logos, you can tell him, hey, Logos, can you dumb it down? I'm not learning from this, which is why I picked on. So there we go. I hear this actually a lot from most of the lady fencers that I polled. If I'm going to die, no matter what I do, I might as well just shoot them with a rubber band gun or not fight at all. And we're looking for fighter retention. We're looking for member retention. We're always looking for more people in the SCAR. And so that is the end. I've got 4 pages here of bibliography. If anybody wants it, I will just send it to you. So we've got roughly 20 minutes. So I'd like to open up the floor. Anybody have questions, comments, concerns, their own experiences? Please feel free. What do you guys think? Don't be shy. You can also put things in the chat. That works too. I did say somebody has just said, thank you so much for covering this critical topic. You are very welcome. I did put these slides on the Google Drive. If anybody's not sure how to access that, you can also just drop an email here in the chat and I can just send you the notes. I can send you the bibliography. I did just see that. Absolutely. If anybody has problems accessing any of those articles from the bibliography, I do have them all saved, so I can also just send you those. But anybody who wants that, please feel free to drop your email in the chat, and then I'll grab that when we're done recording, and I'll make sure I send that stuff to you.
Hi, Gwen.
Hello.
Nobody's talking to you, so I'm going to talk. Maybe
I always love hearing from you.
I know you've given this class many years now.
Yes, this is one of my favorites.
Yep, I know. I'm giving it several times at MCAD, Middle Kingdom Academy of Defense.
Yep.
Nice event that we have here in Mid-Realm where we talk about teachy things related to fencing. Teachy things. But yeah, I don't really have a question other than when can you come down to my group and give this class to my new fencers?
Anytime you want it, I will come on down. You and I'll chat.
That's right.
See, I have a question here. How do you work with a female fighter who has lost her confidence in being able to do this? That's a really good question. Not knowing the particulars of any given fighter, what I may do, I'm drawing a little bit from what Master Kai did for me, was to say, okay, you know what? Let's back it up. Let's review. Let's start from the ground up. For context for me, I'd gotten as far as I was going to get with a particular style. And also my foundation wasn't that good. I was getting very frustrated. As I had said in a previous class that Roland was at, I was starting to feel like I'm a total failure. I'm an embarrassment to my teacher. This is all awful. And, so when I got into that space, nothing I did was going to go well for me. And so what Kai did, he said, okay, you know what? Let's just start from scratch. And so we did. We started at day 1. This is a lunge. And it took me a little while to warm up to this idea of starting at ground zero. But he made the point that, you know what, like, you do know this, but let's start over and reaffirm everything you know. And of course, I did know how to do a lunge. Of course I did. I was a calf knot and been doing this for many years. Of course I knew a lunge. But I was able to finesse my lunge and review those lessons, but I could also go, oh, hey, I do know how to do this. I can't be that awful. Also, if that student has a chance to help you teach students who are less experienced than them, it helps remind them everything that they do know. I always get a kick whenever there's somebody new and I get to do Welcome to Fencing 101, This is a Sword. Because it reminds me, like, gosh, I really have learned a lot. I do maybe possibly know what I'm doing. And then just that method of, here it is, I'm not going to strike you. The blade is going to stop here. And then we're going to agree with each other, put your mask on. Now I'm going to try to strike you. That also did a lot for my confidence and continues to do a lot for my confidence with any given style, trick, maneuver, lesson, whatever it is, because I did it right in slow motion. However long it takes me, sometimes it takes me a couple weeks, but I can go, I got it at a quarter speed. And so if I can get it at a quarter speed, I can learn to do it at half speed, which means I can learn to do it at 3/4, which means I can learn to do it at full speed. And Kai, being my teacher, will modulate that speed depending on how I'm doing. If things are starting to get sloppy, okay, let's slow down. And he'll always remind me, he'll say, you're doing well. He won't lie. He won't say I'm doing well if I'm not. Some days I clearly left my fencing head at home and he'll go, it's like, you know what, today's just not your day. So he acknowledges, yeah, today wasn't a good day, but without saying, you're off, you're terrible, what are you doing? And that helps maintain that confidence. So sometimes we just got to start over and remind ourselves of everything that we do in fact know. And I actually just remembered now one thing Kai would do at events, and sometimes at practice, but more events at the time, is he would pick out fencers that he knew that he could trust to give me a fun fight. And he'd say, go fight Adam. Go fight Baron Adam. Go pick a fight with Cecil. Go fight Roland, because Roland's a lot of fun. And so I would go and tell them, oh, hey, would you like to fight? Sure. What are you looking for? I'm just kind of looking for some fun, or I'm working on this thing. And because, Kai knew these people and could trust these people, he knew that they would adjust themselves to what I asked for. And so maybe I fought Adam 5 passes and I got him 3 of them. Do I really think I'm better than Adam? No, he's got a collar that I don't. But in that moment, I got to execute what I did, and I got to be successful within the context of this is what I'm learning. And so then I did well. Then I go to a tournament and he smokes my butt, but that's not what we were looking for. Tournaments, as far as I'm concerned, all bets are off. And to the person who needs to pop out, you're welcome. We have, what about from the other side? If you are the female fighter and you have a teacher, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to expand this, that believes in just hitting you until you understand. Either tell them, this isn't working. You can show them this stuff showing, like, we've got somebody with psychology experience who is telling us that this doesn't work. Or if you can, find a different teacher. If the teacher is unwilling to adjust to your needs as the student, that's a bad teacher. And if I was putting my therapist hat on, I would be looking at that teacher going, what is it you think you're proving? What is it you think you're getting out of this? Because that really makes me question where the teacher's ego is in all of this. That they are more focused on doing it their way than doing it in the way that it's going to actually help their students. Isn't that what the teacher's there for? The way Kai puts it is that his ultimate goal is that one day every one of his students can smoke his butt. He says, like, that means I'm a good teacher if I can get my students to the point where they can beat me. And I guess I've taken that one to heart. I don't always kill Kai, but I've met him in tournaments before and I've gotten him. And I know in a tournament, when he's facing me, all bets are off. Because A, it's a tournament, and B, that's what I want from him. Like, if I cost you in a tournament, don't be a teacher, be my opponent. So that's my answer to that. Or, you could just point them out to me and I'll go all therapist on their butt and they won't like it. If they're real bad, I'll combine therapist voice with commander voice and they will not have fun. Anybody else?
Hey, Gwen,
Yes.
do you mind if I add on a little bit on that?
Sure. Oh, please go ahead.
Not only, is it that your teacher should be able to sort of change their approach in order to meet the student, but let's bear in mind that there's no one way to use a sword.
Mm-mm.
There's no one style. If you have a teacher who's very adamant about this is the way to learn, this is the way to use a sword, this is the way to win, they're missing the point. I mean,
Yeah.
the big point.
Yeah.
Um, and just on a physical level as well, not
Uh-huh.
everyone can do the same styles. I mean, let's keep
Um,
in mind, especially in rapier fencing, all these manuals were really written by very athletic people.
yeah.
We're not all that athletic.
No.
And everybody who was handling a sword in the time period wasn't either.
No. So like my body just cannot do a proper fabris. I've got bad knees, I've got scoliosis. My body just can't do a proper fabris. So you know what?
Right.
I don't do fabris.
And you know what?
I,
I've seen people use Saviolo and beat somebody who's fencing Fabris.
yeah.
It doesn't matter what
Nope.
style you're using. Just find the one that works for you
Mhm.
physically and mentally and, kind of, personality wise.
Yes.
And, you know, find your joy in fencing and then practice that style.
Mhm.
If you like what you're doing, you're going to do it more and then you'll get
Yeah.
better at it.
Yep. A good teacher, especially within, at least within how fencing seems to work in my area of the mid realm, is that we do have a lot of these one-on-one student teacher relationships. This is your mentor, or this is your mod or your ward or whatever. So that person is sometimes your teacher, but isn't always. So if they see, like, you know what, the thing I know isn't working for you, go talk to that person. Or this thing you might want to learn, like Kai, he is awful at feints. It's not part of his style. He's not good at it, and he doesn't need them. Feints can benefit me, but he can't teach me those. So he said, go talk to R2. If anybody doesn't know, that's Warder Raphael. We all call him R2. It's a long story. R2 is very good at feints. So I'm learning from him. Because Kai, he's my mod. And so he goes, it's my responsibility to put the teaching in front of her that she needs. Also, Kai is 6 foot everything. The things that work for him will not work for me because I am 5'5". I am of average height for a woman. I do not have those very long Spanish. I also have a 3rd degree black belt strides that he has. The two of us walking together, it's like a horse and a pony. I take like 3 little strides to like every one of his. So the things that work for him won't necessarily work for me. And he's the kind of teacher who can figure out, okay, either this is what will work for her, or say, try this and we'll see what happens. Or he'll go get somebody else. I have gotten very used to fencing Kai with like Master Desco, Master Terry, and Master Logos all standing there going, And if you want to know what self-conscious feels like, that's self-conscious right there. But usually between the 4 of them, one of them will come up with something. One of them will go, oh, this is what she's doing. Do this. Or why don't you have her try that? And we go, oh. I mean, granted, I also benefit that I have a practice with Master Kai and Master Tedesco and Master Terry and Master Logos. I do get that benefit. But, we can all teach somebody something. And I see I got another question. Let's see. I tell my students, my job is to help them and support them. It's not to try to teach them everything myself. And I think that is excellent because none of us know everything. And we don't all learn the same from different people. just the way they teach, the way we learn. I remember there was a period where the entire Thieves of Hearts group, I can't remember what it was, but they all tried to teach me this thing and it did not work from any of them until Deacon tried. And Deacon went, well, it's just like this. And I went, oh, well, that one made sense. The previous 12 didn't, but that's okay. So it does look like we are just at about time. So any final questions? Seems like not. So thank you, everybody. I will ask our moderator if she can perhaps stop recording so that I can grab those emails. I don't know if it's my screen we're recording, but I want to keep, people anonymous.